So thank you, everyone. Thank you to Rick for inviting me to join the panel today and for the conference invitation. I hope everyone's having a good session so far today. I want to talk to you a little bit about how a particular point of view of the future of the electric grid. And so as Rick mentioned, I work with Mortenson Construction. We are a privately held construction company out of the Midwest. Our head office is in Minneapolis, but we do work across the country. The interesting thing that we bring to bear when we're talking about the future of the electric grid is that we have customers and we do work on both sides of the meter. So we have significant commercial customers. We can advance. All right. We have significant commercial customers as well as I think there's some animation here. You can keep advancing. As well as energy customers. So we have a significant utility scale, wind, solar, mainly renewables focused practice. And on the commercial side, you can just keep advancing. Have built some significant, all right. Infrastructure on both coasts, including most recently finishing the Chase Arena in San Francisco for the Golden State Warriors. And on this side of the country, the Braves facility in Atlanta. So let's see if it works. No, I think. Can you advance? Right. So talking a little more, our background includes trying to interconnect significant new loads to the grid. And as we're talking about the future of the grid, we need to talk about how we're going to interconnect the built environment that we're building to this ever-evolving state of our electricity grid. We've been involved in the evolution of the energy sector since the early 90s with the growth of the wind industry, then moving into solar, but most recently, and the part of our practice that I'll focus on today in the emerging energy technologies sectors, including energy storage, microgrids, and the electrification of transportation. Continue. So to put some context around the conversation, we have noticed, as Rick mentioned, this trend and move towards decarbonization and how quickly that's happening. We've also felt, having this experience on both sides of the meter, the impact of resilience. So events like Hurricane Sandy and increasing disruption of power supply to our customers, depending on the geographies that they're in. And then in discussions with our customers, really focusing in on what is it that's driving for them their engagement with the grid modernization efforts and where things are moving in the future. And then finally, because we don't just build on the commercial side of the business, talking to our utility customers about how the impacts that they're seeing to both locally their distribution systems, the bulk power system, their transmission assets, and the evolution of these use cases. So we look at the transition from three perspectives. One, when we're talking to a customer, what is it that they're trying to achieve? So I'll call that a dependent infrastructure build out. What is their number one priority? And these are usually just single primary use cases, like they want to add some renewables or use less electricity from a high-priced utility tariff. So maybe we're thinking about putting some on-site solar or something that is very load specific. Then we move, I'm going to stay there for a second. Then we're going to move into a conversation with them about resiliency. So if they're thinking about resiliency, how would that interconnect and how would the conversation play out with their local utility infrastructure? And what do we need to do to ensure that they can continue to operate whatever fashion of their business they want to in case of some kind of an outage? And then third, we're looking at it from an entire system and strategic perspective. So this is where we start to see the interconnection and the intersection of the transportation infrastructure required, the built environment, and then the energy impact that all of these assets are having on each other. Now we can go. So the group thinks a lot about three things, and I want to take you through kind of what we're thinking about and some ideas perhaps that we'll get to in discussion and that hopefully some of my fellow panelists will have solutions to. One, we are talking to our customers to really encourage them to define what they need. So in the talking about the future of the electric grid, we often find ourselves having a conversation about microgrids and what is a microgrid and the what is the emerging technology. And there's always kind of the latest buzzword. And we've really found some traction in talking to them about what problem are they trying to solve at a local customer-focused level. We also spend a lot of time thinking about this move towards distributed energy assets and how that can impact the overall asset control and network architectures and how we're thinking about security and both physical and cybersecurity implications of increasing the number of interconnections on a single kind of location. And then third, we're thinking about how do we at scale integrate renewables behind the meter. So if a utility has a restriction on a given interconnection or a given meter location, how do we still meet a customer's desire or requirement to match real-time energy consumption with the potential on-site renewables? So microgrids, we get often asked by our customers, they come in and they're very excited and they say, we want a microgrid. And we're said, okay, great. But do you know that that means it's just an on-off switch? That's all that, it's more, the engineers will tell me it's more complicated than that. But simplistically, that's really what we're talking about. So we try to get our customers to spend time in this bottom section where let's talk about what problems are you trying to solve, what's your goals and what's your objectives, and then how can we match the right group of technologies to meet those goals and demands. And then we spend a lot of time here, and from an engineering perspective, this becomes really important. We can solve any of these power quality and resilience problems from an engineering perspective and with currently available technology. But what level of resilience are you really trying to achieve? And for 90% of our customers, it's likely on the far left of that spectrum of resilience, where if the power goes out, they just want something to come back online so that they can have life safety and emergency response assets that are available. Then the 10% of our customers who have more sophisticated needs, and we're finding a greater number of customers who are falling into this bucket as we go down this digitization path and as we go down this decarbonization path, the resilience problem or question becomes a greater challenge in how do you achieve perfect resilience where there is a seamless transition if you have some kind of an event to your power supply. The second question or challenge or set of problems that we spend a lot of time thinking about is this attack surface for potential problems on a network. So as we're introducing more distributed energy resources, which are wonderful for achieving additional functionality and flexibility of the grid, meeting some of our customer objectives on integrating renewables and solving some of their potential local problems, we're also increasing the number of points where you can access not just their particular asset or grid, you can access all the way back up if it's owned by a third-party owner-operator back into their network operating center. You can, from there, potentially go all the way back up into the bulk power system. So not that that's the objective, but in order to solve those problems, you need to think about it from the beginning as you're doing your system planning. And I think there's some maturity that needs to be introduced to the discussion around introducing not just a distributed solar asset, but when you start increasing the number of things that are all interconnected, solar plus storage, turn it into a microgrid. Let's add the building controls because that kind of makes sense and you want that functionality on site. Wait a second, maybe we don't need to own all of our own infrastructure. We can get someone else to own that and just pay an operating expense, which is a really interesting business model. But as these things evolve, we need to be thinking back to what are the fundamentals of opportunities to disrupt. The final space that we think a lot about at the moment in terms of the energy solutions team that I work with is this behind the meter question. So if you happen to live in a space where your utility has a lot of room on their network to add more renewables or add more utility scale assets, that's great. But if you think about the trend towards urbanization and where a lot of these large potential use case developments are coming, think transportation electrification in urban environments. So you're suddenly electrifying 1,800 buses, and a single battery on a bus is over 600 kilowatt hours, and you need to charge it. The charging infrastructure alone that you need to build in a dense urban environment is going to have an impact on both the utility but also the transit operator. How do you match new generation behind the meter for the transit agency that helps take some of the load and stress off of the utility that needs to serve them? So we spend a lot of time in that big blue box thinking about what kind of technologies already exist that can help bridge the gap, and we have some ideas there, but looking forward to everyone else's ideas. My last thing to leave you with, I talk a lot about transportation electrification, and we spend a lot of time thinking about it. One of the projects that we're working on is with the city of Chicago. Thank you. Let's all just pause and laugh. With the city of Chicago on electrifying their bus transit system that I just referenced, kind of the magnitude and scale of the challenge, 1,800 buses, dense urban environment, with a lot of development built on top of each other. So 1800s, 1900s, kind of the evolution of urbanization. And perhaps we can think about EV charging infrastructure the way we currently think about stationary energy storage infrastructure in terms of satisfying those three buckets of potential resilient and resiliency for infrastructure. So customer-centric or dependent, utility capable, or in this case, resilient, as we're thinking about them. And then finally, the overall impact to the community and the network, which we think of as strategic. Last slide. Thank you.